right, let's try this again. There we go. Good morning. It's the morning call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB 1230 M, 104.7 FM. And it's great to be with you this morning. Been a trying period of time for a lot of us, especially those of us living in Hammond or Whiting or East Chicago, really anywhere in Northwest Indiana. Last few days with the amount of rain that we had, we'll certainly talk about that and take your calls. I think there's a lot to talk about, and sometimes it's just good to clear the air, and plenty of other issues to discuss this morning. But we'll begin with traffic and weather. The good news is traffic is actually light throughout the Chicago region. Northwest Indiana, 8094 I-65, the toll road Klein Avenue, moving into Illinois, 294, the Chicago Skyway, Bishop Ford, Dan Ryan, all look pretty decent this morning. The only tight spot in the entire Chicago area is up on the Kennedy Expressway, and that's actually coming into the city, not going outbound. So for listeners here, you'd be going outbound toward O'Hare. So really doesn't look bad this morning anywhere on the roadways in Northwest Indiana. There are some barricades still up on Indianapolis Boulevard, especially up near Atchison Avenue on Indianapolis Boulevard, where a force main blew out on Sunday during the Sunday morning deluge. And I want to talk about that because I think that's one of the things that we haven't heard is whether that had any impact on the problems that people in Robertsdale and Whiting have had with their sewers. I can tell you firsthand that my basement drains, I pulled the standpipe last night at 7 p.m. and water was still coming up. I put the standpipe right back in. This morning now the drain is working. So it's been a long, trying process, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that want to talk about that this morning. So with that, let's move on to weather, because if it wasn't for weather, we wouldn't have had all the problems we had. So good morning, Joe.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well after all of these flash floods and such that we were talking about. But as for today, we shouldn't have any rain. We should have some humidity with a high of 77 and some cloudiness. Thursday, to round out the week, it'll be much of the same, but it'll be a little bit hotter with a high of 77. And then as for the weekend, the last weekend before school starts, we have a bunch of great weather with 83, 82, and 75, all sunny and partially cloudy. And that's your weather for the rest of the week.
So, of course, like a lot of people up in Robertsdale and Hammond, Whiting, East Chicago, I think the north end of the county got hit the worst, although I certainly believe that people in Munster and Cherville and South had some concerns over the weekend too. The weather was just unbelievable. I've never seen so much rain in the 37 years now that I've owned my home. In Robertsdale, I've never seen that much rain come down in a short period of time. It was just remarkable. The good news is that on Friday morning at about 5:30, my wife Donna woke me up out of a very deep sleep and said, "There's an alarm going off in the basement. Maybe you need to go check it." And it was that the backup sump pump, we have two sump pump pits, and the backup pump in pit number 1 was actually going off, which meant that the old sump pump had to be replaced. I got up 7:30, went to Milne Supply in Munster, replaced the pump, and thank God for that, because if that pump had gone out during the deluge Monday night, I'd have a lake in my basement. I'd have as much water as my swimming pool. But the good news is I replaced it on Friday, so I was prepared for the mess that we had both Sunday morning and then Sunday night, Monday. So with that, let's go to some callers. We've got callers already waiting.
Can you actually explain to me what the pump is? I don't understand.
So a lot of homes, mine included, have a sump pump system. So there are tiles around the foundation, and as seepage tries to move toward the basement, because seepage is water, it's groundwater that's just trying to push to find the weakest point. So a lot of times it infiltrates into the basement. So if you have a sump pump system, that the lines going around the house collect the water and then discharge it through a sump pit and discharge the water from getting into the basement. So I have a dual sump pump system, and I actually have 4 pumps. I have 2 pits one pit handles one half the house, the other handles the second half of the house, and then there's a backup for each sump pump. So if the power goes out, they're battery powered, and they'll last about 8 to 10 hours.
That makes me curious because we were talking off air, and I don't know if I said this outright, but my room is in the basement.
Yes.
So and my dog spends a lot of time down there with me, and it was just us when the flash floods when I got the flash flood warning on my phone. I hadn't eaten anything yet. I was like, dang, I need some food. So I tried to Uber Eats because I was like, I can't leave my dog here. There's thunder everywhere, like, and there's lightning, and she's terrified. But we ended up, I actually had to bring her in the car and take her with me. And as soon as we got out, like, my car, like, splashed as soon as I hit the road, like,
Yeah.
on the curb, because our neighborhood has a little bit of, like, a higher curb. So, like, there was, like, it was already puddling, and it was probably coming down for, like, 15 minutes. And I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, my guess is that you probably have sump pumps, and you just don't know it. It's probably in a utility room, and a lot of people don't even realize that, especially in newer homes, they don't realize that they have a sump pump system until it goes out, and then they realize it when the water comes up. I mean, my wife used to live in New Lenox, and she didn't know that her sump pump had failed until she saw some seepage one time, and then I changed it for her. But yeah, I mean, again, it's one of two ways to protect your basement. The other issue, and my basement's partially finished, so one half of the basement is finished, the other half is not. So I don't want to lose anything down there. And the other thing that you have floor drains. Well, floor drains are hooked to your sanitary side of the home, basically where your bathroom drains go and your kitchen drains. And a lot of people were having problems over the last 24 hours because they didn't have standpipes. A standpipe is simply a pipe that goes into the drain and stands higher than the level that the water can possibly move up to, so it vents it and allows the air and the pressure to vent, but not the water. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't have standpipes, and standpipes are a simple, easy way to avoid having a flooded basement. So let's go to some callers. We've got people waiting. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, this event, which captured the attention of Chicago, Channel 9 had a big piece. They sent a field reporter out, and, seeing all the problems from the water and so forth, and is proof positive there's plenty of work to be done on the infrastructure. We don't need...
You're right about that. Let me just mention, I know that Channel 9 was out. I know that Channel 7 was out. They were down near some friends of mine over in the Water Gardens area. CBS 2 was out. CBS 2 actually called me and wanted to know if I had any issues myself. So they were all out here. This was a big story, no doubt, Walt. Go ahead.
We don't need any more billion-dollar boondoggle railroad projects at a time when public transportation is in decline all across the country. But you have people in Northwest Indiana who talking, they're empire builders, and they're talking about building railroad tracks out of Valparaiso and Lowell and Cedar Lake and so forth. Let's focus on the stuff that's really needed all the time, no matter what, and that is infrastructure, roads, bridges, sewers. That's where we need to put our priorities, not railroad tracks.
Well, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. In fact, there was a post, and he probably meant well by it, but by the way, I invited Mayor McDermott and his chief of staff, Scott Miller, to come on this morning. They said that they were unavailable. I also put out some feelers to some other elected officials, and there were a number of elected officials who went to social media and posted, and I noticed that Mayor McDermott posted a statement and then had a bunch of his city employees repost it, which is fine. I mean, if they want to do it, that's fine. The only question I always have is, do people realize why it's being reposted? But, it says that, at the peak of the storm, our plant saw 160 million gallons, more than twice its daily capacity. Our CSO basin was discharging over 500 gallons per day at the height of the storm for a system that's rated for 80 million gallons a day. Every pump at the station was continuously running it was triple staffed. Not sure what triple staffed means. I mean, if you triple staffed, it's like, okay, double staffed, I get it, but triple staffed, why would you need 3 people to do the job? I don't get that. But basically says, that these were unprecedented conditions, and I agree. And I don't think you can blame the mayor for the rain. But there are some questions that I would like to ask the mayor this morning. For example, there are 2 force mains that run from the Robertsdale station down to the treatment plant on Columbia Avenue, which, by the way, you're in Munster. Your discharges also go through the Hammond. It's the Hammond-Munster Sanitary District. So your stuff is going there too, and many other communities. The Hammond-Munster Sanitary District serves a number of communities in northwest Indiana, not just Hammond and Munster. One of the things that I'd like to know is there's a force main that was out. Now, I was told that they were trying to get it repaired by Monday evening in time for the rains. But nobody has mentioned, did they get it repaired? Did they get it fixed in time? Because Indianapolis Boulevard at Atchison Avenue is still closed as of this morning. I drove through there, and you have to go around a detour. So did they get the line fixed? Because those 2 force mains take all the effluent from Robertsdale and Whiting down to Columbia Avenue. It's under high pressure, so it's moving volume very quickly. But were they fixed? And 80 million gallons is 80 million gallons, the necessary amount for such a large area, because I believe that Highland and Griffith are also part of the Hammond-Munster Sanitary District. So did the system, you say, well, the system worked. It handled more than 80 million gallons. That's great. But is the system designed for the right amount of flow?
Well, sounds to me that's an argument for giving a certain project priority, don't you?
Well, I do. And look, I don't know what he had to do. And it doesn't matter. I mean, if he doesn't want to come in, it's fine. But, it seems like there are a lot of questions that people have that need to be answered. I have lived in Robertsdale all my life, except for the time that I was town manager of Cedar Lake. I've been up there in my home since 1988. I bought that home in September 1988, so I'm closing in on 37 years in that home. I have never seen rain like I saw on Monday night. I admit it is a truly unique event, and again, I've got a waterproofing system from U.S. Waterproofing that kept my basement dry. But I've never seen standpipes where you pulled the standpipe yesterday afternoon and water came gushing out, and you had to stick it right back in. And it was still doing that at 7 o'clock last night. To me, that seems like seems just a little bit odd. I am going to take advantage of the sanitary district's program to put in a check valve. I don't know why I haven't done it before. They'll give up to $2,000 to put in a check valve. If you talk to plumbers, your check valve is going to cost you somewhere around $2,000, $2,500. It's well worth it. Then you have that peace of mind that your basement can never flood. If your sump pumps are working, you got backup sump pumps, or a whole house generator, and you've got a check valve, your basement's going to stay dry. And you know what? I want that peace of mind, especially with my condo in Florida. I don't want to come home and find out that I've got a basement full of what. So yeah. I will take advantage of that one, and I think my neighbors are going to as well. But again, there's a lot of questions, and we need answers.
Well, when you have a lot of people want to talk about changing weather. Weather's always changed, and the responsible government authorities shouldn't be building just for the minimum or the average, and particularly at a time when there's a lot of talk about changing weather. There's been flooding all around the country. People talking about we're having 100-year floods every year now, kind of thing. Maybe you ought to build to the maximum, and it's think big. If you want, instead of thinking extending railroad tracks to Valparaiso and Lowell and Cedar Lake, let's think big about the basic infrastructure, particularly dealing with water. $2,000 is nothing. If you fill up your basement full of water, $2,000 to fix that, plus some lost items that maybe been in the family for a long period of time, is a drop in the bucket. And
well, you know what? It's interesting. I think I'm wrong on this, but I took a high estimate. Okay, so let's say there's 25,000 homes in Hammond, and at $2,000 each, if everybody took advantage of it, it'd be $50 million. Well, $50 million is less than 5% of what we spent on that train.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd put a check valve in everybody's basement, and then nobody would ever have to worry about backup. I mean, you have a point, Walt. You know, by the way, does your home have a check valve?
No, we have some pump.
You have some pumps, but the floor drain, you have a floor drain in your house. So if the sewer system ever backs up, the idea of the check valve is that the check valve slams shut and doesn't allow the backup to occur. So, you know, again, I've only had to put standpipes in maybe 3 or 4 times in the entire time that I've owned that home. And the one other event that was similar to this that stands out was in the 1990s, and Tom McDermott Sr. was the mayor. And I got to say, McDermott Sr., he was out there. He actually came to my house. I was in my basement, and I hear this voice, and somebody walked in from the basement entrance, and it was the mayor. And he's like, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" I'm like, what are you doing in my basement? He's like, "I just came to check to make sure I'm going door to door. I'm checking to make sure everything's okay." And, you know, I showed him, and he's like, "Yeah." And he told me then, this was in the 1990s, that the Robertsdale station had been swamped and the electrical panels had been shorted out. Well, I know they moved those electrical panels by the time he was finished being mayor. But that was pretty amazing. He actually showed up to my house, and he was, you know, I still remember the conversation that Tom Sr. and I had about sump pumps, about standpipes, because he said, you know, he goes, "Your standpipes are made of plastic pipe. That's really cool." He said, "Most of them that I see are made of you know, old metal pipe." And I said, "Yeah, I changed it." And you know, I never had a conversation with the mayor or too many other people in my life about standpipes other than Tom McDermott Sr. So again, you know, if you figure there's 100,000 homes in Northwest Indiana, you're probably talking $200 million to put in all these control valves. But you know what? That's still 10% of what we spent on the South Shore extension.
Back in 2008, when the area experienced the big flood kind of thing.
Yes.
My brother at the time lived about a block from the Little Calumet River. His basement filled to the raft all the way up completely. It cost him $50,000 to fix that.
You know,
wow.
I'm going to throw this out too, and I certainly don't need anybody visiting. I didn't have any problem, but there are a lot of people in Robertsdale, North Hammond, East Chicago, Whiting, who lost a lot in their basement. There was the one couple on Warwick that they showed last night on ABC7 who just finished their basement. I mean, it was really very, very nice. I mean, you talk about a beautiful basement, and they lost everything down there. They're going to have to tear it out, and I believe that Hammond Public Works is going to be running crews on Saturday and Sunday to pick up damaged items. I saw a post by a woman who's a single mother who said, "Yeah, I've got a pile of you-know-what in my basement now that I need to haul out of there." And I remember during the floods in Munster and Highland and other areas in 2008, as you pointed out, I did 3 tours down in the flood area cleaning out people's homes. So maybe if there's some people that are listening that you know, maybe from some of the drier areas want to head up north and, you know, post online, they're available. I think it'd be a great idea. Some of those people, some of the folks that are up in Robertsdale and Whiting and East Chicago are older, and they could use an extra hand. So I did talk to one person who usually calls in here who was on Parkview yesterday helping somebody. So, you know, it'd be a good time to repay the favor maybe.
How about another problem? Have you looked at your August NIPSCO bill?
Yeah, well, NIPSCO, Walt, that is that's obscene. The amount of money that we're paying to NIPSCO, and keep in mind, it's not just us. That affects every commercial development. It affects every city and town in Northwest Indiana. So, my sump pumps were probably running continuously for about 24 hours. You'd hear them, they'd cycle, stop, cycle, stop, cycle, stop. I can't imagine what my electric bill is going to be next month. It's just horrible.
Well, and I've just as I've talked about the infrastructure issue for many years. Why spend money on railroad tracks? But we have so much infrastructure things to work on. I've also talked about the rise in the price of energy, and getting these letters from NIPSCO talking about how they're going to go to free energy from the sun and the wind and so forth. All I got to do is go to California and see what those people out there are experiencing in terms of the escalating cost of energy with a system based so strongly on wind and solar.
Yeah, well, let's face it, Walt. NIPSCO decided to get out of the electric generating business a long time ago. Okay, they've been closing their generation plants, and largely, although they claim they're building these solar plants, and Phil Patumpa's talked about some of the tragedies that occur from solar farms, but the fact is that they're not building new capacity for generation. Instead, they're just buying it from somebody else, and buying it from somebody else sounds good, but in reality, there isn't enough capacity in the United States to provide for all of our needs. And my son was in before. In fact, I'm going to see if he wants to come in next Friday. I'm going to be filling in next Friday, as well as, of course, the show next Wednesday, when I'm going to have 2 state senators on, and we're going to talk about NIPSCO. So we need to have people call in like yourself to ask questions about NIPSCO and other state issues. But the fact is that my son talked about these packaged nuclear plants. I mean, there's got to be some consideration for other forms of technology, because those windmills that you see when you go on I-65 spin nicely, but they're not producing enough power for our needs. And you're not going to be able to put up enough windmills to power our needs in this country. So you better look at something else.
In our area, of course, we have a heavy concentration of heavy industry, steel and so forth. These are big consumers of energy.
They sure are.
And I've asked, do you seriously think that those spinning windmills are going to provide enough energy for the steel mills plus the rest of us?
You know what?
No.
I read a report that said that there are almost 1,000 windmills out in those windmill farms south of here, and total they produce less power than the power produced at the Couts generating plant that they want to close. So, hey, with that, I'm getting a signal that we got to move on. Thank you so much, Walt. Have a good day. We have more callers? You want to take the callers real fast, and then we'll go to a break, or what do you want to do? Take the quick break? All right. Callers, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. 2-minute break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM.
A tender refrain, threads of the storm they weave and unwind, cradling the night, a solace to find. House breathes heavy, its heartbeat slow, walls hold echoes of what they a quiet embrace beneath the sky. Rain wraps round a warm blanket tight, holding the house in its arms tonight. Gentle sorrows drift unsaid, unseen in the hush the dark where the world can see. Shadows flicker where the lamplight fades. There shapes the story, the stillness descends. Carried by water, those murmurs fade. Through cracks in the silence, the rain prevails. Sorrows hum and warmth collide in the folds of the storm where tears reside. Soft is the grief, tender its tone, a reminder that none of us sleep alone. Rain wrapped round a warm blanket tight, holding the house in its arms to you. Gentle sorrows drift unseen in the hush of the dark where the world can see. Rain wrapped round a warm blanket tight, holding the house in its arms tonight. Gentle sorrows drift.
All right, we're back, and I know some people are wondering about the lead-in music these days, but because we're now carried on YouTube Live, we can't play any copyrighted music. And I know that drives one gentleman who used to call and request songs. We can't play anything that's copyrighted. So the other day he called in and said, "Well, can you play this music? It has no words to it. If it's copyrighted, the answer is we cannot." So that's the explanation for the music. But we've got plenty of callers waiting, so let's go right to those callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Okay, well, I don't care what the temperature of your pool is, but with all that water, does that make your pool flood over or anything?
No, my pool actually has an automatic top on it. You can stand on it. So the top is closed, and it's made of Kevlar, and it is
Okay.
basically the water doesn't get into the pool. You have to put a pump. The only difficult thing about an automatic cover is you have to put a pump on top of the cover. So when you want to use it, you have to take the pump off, but that takes all of 2 minutes. So it's a 2-minute nuisance, but well worth it. The cover on the pool had so much water that the pump couldn't keep up with it. At one point, overnight on Monday, I looked out in the yard and I could see that the pool pump was completely underwater. So that's how much water.
Wow.
That's about I think that pump is rated for about 1,600 gallons an hour. So it's pretty high capacity.
Yeah, I heard on the news and everything about it. Well, that big Monday night, Tuesday morning, I'm sitting there laying and sleeping, and a big old crack and thunder come up, woke me up, and I couldn't go back the rest of the morning, And
well, there were a lot of us. There were a lot of us that stayed up all night. Look, you want to make sure, even though you think your sump pumps are going to do fine, and you've got standpipes in, or you've got a check valve, which I plan on getting shortly. You still, there's something about not trusting in mechanical systems. So you spend all night basically awake, worrying about something going to happen, and those lightning strikes, the wind that occurred overnight on Sunday. Or Sunday morning, I should say, was extremely strong. That first round of storms that came through Saturday night to Sunday, I mean, there were winds over 60 miles an hour, and the amount of damage that occurred was fairly minimal here, but I had to drive through Hegewisch on Monday morning, and I called my wife because every single block in Hegewisch had either a tree or a branch down, large branch. So we missed those winds just by a couple of miles.
Yeah, one of my friends lives over there close to, like, by Deep River Park over there, north of 30, road that cuts down County Line Road or something, and he got, oh man, his house and his big garage, they had to hurry up and go buy a bunch of tarps because I guess they had bad, strong winds and tore up his roof on both house and his big garage, It was...
Winds, when you think about storms and you think about the different aspects, obviously if your house gets hit by lightning, it can do tremendous damage.
Yes.
If you have flooding like we had in the case of the storms from day before, from yesterday morning, if you have windstorms like Sunday morning, I mean, all of those different aspects can do such damage to people's property. And if it doesn't affect you, you say, gee, that's too bad, and you drive on. But when you walk down the street like I did last night with my dog, and I realized I saw all of these hoses running from people's basements, it meant that they lost a lot. They may have lost their utilities. They may have lost a finished basement. They probably lost mementos. They lost old furniture, things in storage. One good thing about this storm is it reminded me that I've got several boxes and several items in my basement that I don't need in the unfinished part, and so I'll take advantage of the pickups this weekend and throw the stuff out. Not that it's waterlogged or damaged, it's just that, hey, it's time to get rid of it, so I'll throw it out in the alley since everything else is going out there.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to let you go in a second because I got to do some things, but it's like long years ago when Katrina come through New Orleans and stuff.
Yes.
And, you see all this stuff, all the floods, all the damages, all the storms. Me and 3 other of my drivers from my old boss, we went down there to take stuff to relieve or to rescue down there. And you see stuff on TV, but when you actually really see what happened, it just makes your mouth and how you feel so sorry for the people and, just pray for them,
Absolutely, and that's there are a lot of people hurting on maybe a little smaller scale than Katrina or hurricane, but those people are still hurting just as much from the storm. So thanks so much for calling, Mike.
Yeah, everybody just have a safe and be safe and have a nice day today.
All right, thank you. 845-1100, we've got another caller. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Again, you were spot on earlier talking about cost effectiveness with trying to be proactive with the flood mitigation problems. And it struck a chord. You were talking about the check valve. Years ago, growing up, I'm wondering, what the heck is my dad doing? He was good friends with a lot of people in the region, probably know him. Frank Giglio with Cal City Plumbing.
Yes.
And he spent the weekend, he was good friends with Frank, spent the weekend down in the basement, and that's what he was doing while neighbors being neighbors were questioning, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And this was way before flooding happened, and that Forestdale Park area, southeast corner of Old Cal City, there's some beautiful houses in there. The Tomzaks grew up there, as a matter of fact, and such. But so all the neighbors were asking what's going on, and my dad kind of explained it to them, and they all shrugged it off. Now, these people, it wasn't that they didn't have the money to do it. They just, they just blew it off. Well, the next thing, there were floods, like water and such. A lot of people lost a lot of things, and cost effectiveness. You were spot on.
Again, I'm lucky. I've got standpipes, and as I mentioned before, and half hour ago, I've had those standpipes the entire time I had my house, and they were actually impressive to the former mayor of Hammond, Tom McDermott Sr. He was impressed by that I had made plastic PVC standpipes, and the standpipes have worked. But you know what? I don't always have those standpipes in place. And what if I'm out of town? What if I'm on a trip? What if I'm down in Florida and this happens? So if I put the check valve in, I never have to worry about that again. And as I understand it, the Hammond Sanitary District, Hammond Munster Sanitary District is willing to pay up to $2,000. And I called the contractor yesterday, and he said he can do it for that amount. In fact, my neighbors now are interested, so there may be as many as 3 on my block that have the check valve put in, and it won't cost us a dime. So the sanitary district is willing to pay up to $2,000, and I saw that East Chicago, Mayor Copeland, who had one of the best posts, a very sincere, very warm, understanding post about the damage that people were incurring from the storm. He posted that they'll pay up to $1,750 in East Chicago. You know what? Even if you have to shell out $250 out of your pocket or $500, isn't it worth it to have the peace of mind and know that you're never going to have sewage coming up in your basement again? I think it's well worth it.
Even if it's just water, but let alone sewage. Another aspect you were talking about, you were spot on too with the NIPSCO deal. I was going through my career. I worked both at Braidwood Nuclear Powerhouse and Wheatfield. When they were building Wheatfield, when I was an apprentice, I saw both ends of the spectrum, and I read an article last year, I think, just before the end of the year, in the Tribune, and it was about these modular nuclear plants. Actually, Illinois, ComEd, I think, is pushing it because it's all about money, and they know they're going to be, they sell a lot right now.
Right.
But not just one, but 5. They have 5 plants that they got. I guess they got the the permit through Illinois. So you know what they're doing. They're going to be making money.
Well, these package plants are akin to a nuclear power reactor on a submarine or on an aircraft carrier. So we know that there's nuclear powered aircraft carriers. We know there's nuclear powered submarines in the U.S. Navy, and these reactors are about that big. They're not large enough to provide power for, the city of Chicago, but they could provide all the power needs for, say, the city of Hammond.
And like a peaker plant, correct?
Right, and they're smaller. They're smaller units. They're very well protected. They can actually be removed and trucked away. So it's not like those massive plants. You worked at Braidwood. I mean, Braidwood is a monument to technology and engineering and construction. I mean, it's massive, right? So these are these little plants that you can basically fit inside a building, and they're well protected. We've talked about the mayor of Hammond. Well, the mayor of Hammond's mentioned before on these airwaves that he used to sleep right next to the nuclear reactor on Hyman Rickover that he was assigned to. So, there are plenty of people that are familiar with these small nuclear reactors, and they may be an opportunity for the future. They're much, much safer than the great big nuclear reactors that we talk about. My son has been on here before. My son, of course, is just graduated law school this year, but he has a degree in chemistry. He's always been into science and technology, and he tells me, Dad, this is the way to go for the future because they're so easy to replace. They're kind of plug-and-play operations, and it sounds very intriguing. You don't hear NIPSCO talking about anything related to packaged nuclear power, and I don't understand why.
Well, and then NIPSCO's, like you were laying out, because of these data centers, all the people, the homeowners, the businesses, are paying for a lot of these upgrades. That would just be like you doing a project, Tom, around your house and then having the sitting of Whiting and all your neighbors paying for it. Why don't they bill the data centers for all these exorbitant upgrade fees?
Well,
it's ridiculous.
Do you remember under the Obama administration, we were all told that we needed to change to LED lighting, right? Mm-hmm. We had to reduce our dependency on electricity. We had to reduce the dependency by going to LED light bulbs. So I did. No big deal. I mean, they cost me more, but everybody made that change. And now we find out, well, we made that change, but it didn't do us any good because we still don't have enough capacity. So we reduce the power that we use. Instead of using 100 volts for a light, we use 11 volts. We get the same amount of electricity, so it's 1/9 or 1/10 the amount, which is fine. But we still don't have enough capacity as far as production, and largely in part it's because operations like NIPSCO keep on shutting down these coal-powered plants, and look, these claims about climate change. I will tell you the dumbest one that I've heard, and I'm probably go off on it a little bit. Is there's a study that came out this morning that says that dogs are a threat to the climate. I mean, come on, everything's a threat to the climate. You and I are a threat to the climate, but it's time to start having a serious conversation. How are we going to produce energy in this country? Because we can't afford it at the current rate because we don't have enough, so the price is too high. And we need to plan for the future. And technology, as Mon Hanley and others point out, uses a lot of power. Okay, then we need to have that ability to produce power here. And NIPSCO's not making any strides in producing more power. All they're doing is shutting down plants and buying the power off the North American grid, and that's problematic.
You're right. And getting back to the nuke, I also read that some of these modular units actually can run off of some of these larger, older nukes, off the old spent rods. They can actually reuse some of those for power. So there you go, a win-win.
Yeah, no, that's come up before. Absolutely. Yeah. Look, it's burning the waste from the large plants because the large plants are inefficient. So these newer reactors are far more efficient. So they burn more of the fuel rod. And yeah, I mean, look, it sounds intriguing enough that we should be having a large debate. We should have that conversation, including on these airwaves, but nobody's talking about it. Everybody wants to talk about your NIPSCO bill's too high, and NIPSCO doesn't want to talk about the reasons why. The reasons why is they're not producing enough power. So maybe we should do something about that. Right. Great points. Thank you so much for the call. Great points. We have another caller? We do. Let's take a quick call, and then we're going to go to a break because we've got a few minutes yet. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, I don't know what you guys are all worried about or where you're getting all this bad information, because I got all these notes here from Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and they said windmills and solar panels will solve everything. It'll be the greatest thing in the world, and it'll produce so much energy. It'll be like we'll be getting payments from NIPSCO.
Yeah. Because
it's going to work so well, and I do and I heard a couple people on the radio pitch last week about the cost of health care, but Barack Obama told me, and I don't know, maybe I heard it wrong, but MX said he heard the same thing, that Obamacare was going to take care of everything, and nobody would be worried about any health bills anymore.
Yeah, we've been sold a bill of goods quite a few times, Mad Mac, and you're right. We were told that we were going to produce all this power, and one of the funniest statements that Donald Trump ever gave was his description of power being produced from a windmill. And he pretends that he's like, a husband and wife out on a farm, and they're going to watch TV. Well, they can't watch TV because the power went out because there's not enough wind to move the windmill. And it was hysterical. That was, I think, under his first campaign in 2016. But I have to say it was very, very funny. Look, we need sustainable power in this country. And sustainable power has got to include nuclear power. France has nuclear power. Most of Europe has nuclear power, and the United States, who produces all these reactors, they're built by GE, has none. So, or very little. I mean, I should say none, but we're not producing any new ones, and everybody else is looking at new sources of energy. We're building windmills, which are not efficient at all.
Yeah, there's only, you can't defy the laws of physics. It's just that simple. You're going to have to produce. It takes energy to produce energy. It doesn't come out of the ground like a bean sprout on its own with nothing. It costs something. I swear to God, when I wasn't paying that much attention to this stuff, when I was raising kids and that, I remember when NIPSCO was announcing, oh, yeah, we're going to clean everything up, but we're going to get rid of these coal-fired plants and replace them. And I'm like, replace them with what?
Yeah.
What is possibly going to make that amount of energy? And now I got to tell you, when you're just looking at the landscape of things and looking down the horizon, we are going to take it so far in the hind end from NIPSCO with this data center stuff, because we're going to end up subsidizing this. And like I said, I'd hate to give credit to the French for anything other than, chain smoking little whores in France. But I got to tell you, man, their nuclear program.
There's a thing. There is someone to be thankful for. The cigarette. What is it? The chain smoking whores in France. There you are. That was pretty good. That was good.
Yeah, but they do have the nuclear program thing down, except the only problem is that they charge the French so much, the people in France, that they charge them way, way more than the cost plus the little profit to make it, because they got to subsidize the rest of their crazy socialist economy over there.
I want to change the subject for a second, and I mean this sincerely, but I've not heard. Did Griffith get hit with the flooding like Hammond and Whiting got, or not?
I didn't hear too many. The only reason was because when all that water came the night prior. So today's like Wednesday, so it rained a ton on Monday night.
Right.
I happened to be down in Maryville at the time. There was a ton of rain, but I didn't hear of too many people. But I had too many phone calls coming from actually up in your neighborhood. I put in. When I got 3 phone calls, like about 7 a.m., and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you busy, man? We got a flood here." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And my first thought was, "Well, I always buy my sump pumps and everything at Home Depot." I'm like, "Okay, I'll just pick them up at Hammond on the way." And then all of a sudden, it went off my tiny little brain. I go, "Everybody else is buying them at Hammond."
Yeah.
So I went down to Cherville. I literally bought 8 sump pumps in Cherville yesterday morning. By 5 o'clock yesterday, I had sold every single one of them. Now, the 3 people that called needed 4 of them. And I just driving up and down, I see all these hoses and whiting out there, water all over the curbs. People telling me their sub pumps are working.
Well,
but they're having to pump it out the front window into the street because the system doesn't have it. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the infamous Whiting plumber Lane Parabus, who's, I think, he looks like he's about 49, but he's 150. The guy's like Adonis up there. He said that there was a delay on the guy from Hammond who was supposed to turn the switch on at the pump station. And I've heard that on the radio before, and I'm thinking, every sump pump I've ever installed in my entire life is automatic. Why isn't the system in Hammond automatic?
So what I understand is I've heard all kinds of rumors, and that's why I was hoping to have the mayor on to address some of these rumors. But again, he said he couldn't make it. My understanding is that there's something called, they used to nickname it the Unger valve, which basically shut off the Whiting retention basin to Hammond. There's rumors that was not done in a timely manner. I do know that the Robertsdale station is a manned station, so there is somebody there that actually is controlling things. So I don't know all the answers. The bigger thing is since you were up my way, you know that when you got to Atchison Avenue, the street is blocked. You can't get down the boulevard right now because the street's all torn up. That's one of the 2 force mains that run all the way down to Columbia Avenue with all the sewage from Robertsdale. And one of those 2 force mains broke open Sunday morning during the first round of rains that we had, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and they were repairing it still as of Monday afternoon. So did they get it repaired in time? Is that part of the reason why you were up there yesterday? The sewers, if you pulled out a standpipe, Mac, the water was still coming up, right? I mean, you couldn't stop that water. And it was 7 o'clock last night. I went in my basement and I said to my wife, I said, just grab the shop vac and have it handy. And I pulled the standpipe, and right away the water came up. I put it right back down. Now this morning,
yeah, because I had all these folks tell me the same thing. They said, no, we put a stopper in. We cut off the floor drain. I go, what did you cut it off with? Did you use a nice, expensive commercial rubber stopper that you lubed the hell out of it and drove that thing like a, put a 3-inch stopper in a 2.5-inch hole so it's never coming out of there? Or did you use a metal one that's screwed in? I think we used that metal one. How long ago? About 100 years. And I'm like, oh, my God. You take the lid off, the grate off, and you look, and you can then see, that the debris in the hole and then in the drain bell is now, it's moving around, meaning there's a flow coming out of there. So that stopper's not doing, a metal stopper's not doing a thing.
No, you're right about that. You're right.
Yeah, you got to use the rubber one. So I cut these basements off. Once we did that, then we got the sump pump back running, and I just started pumping right back out into the regular system where it went.
Right. You might want to go back and tell some of those people. I think you were up on the kind of the Warwick Parkview area.
Yeah, I was right behind Strax over there.
You might want to tell some of those people to take advantage of the Hammond Sanitary District offer. They'll pay up to $2,000 to put a check valve in. Then you don't have to worry about the floor drains.
When you say that, without belaboring this too far,
sure.
But are they going to come? They have to come into the basement then and cut the concrete to put a check valve in the floor where the floor drains at? Is that the process?
So in some cases it's done inside the home, and in a lot of cases it's done outside of the home. So it can actually be from the home to the sanitary line, say in the alley. So one of the contractors I talked to said, no, we put them outside the home. Again, the idea is, even if they have to break up some concrete to put it in, let's just say for a second, let's say it costs more than $2,000. It costs $2,500. Well, wouldn't it be worth it to spend $500 of your own money and $2,000 of the sanitary district's money to have that peace of mind to not have to worry about the next flood in your basement? To me, I think it'd be worth it. Now, it's not going to stop seepage, and so a lot of the water that's coming in is from seepage, and again, that's expensive. I think when I had U.S. waterproof my basement back in the early 2000s, it was about $8,000 to do it. But you know what? They guarantee that if I have seepage, they'll come out and fix it. So it was money well spent.
Yeah, worst comes to worst. I mean, you can just, the rubber stoppers, they sell them anywhere. They're twist in, and you just lube the hell out of them, drive them in there, and they'll cut that floor drain off right away. Because this guy he started out with about 1.5 feet of water in there. I had the rubber waders on, and because I wasn't going in that mess with But I went down in there, and once I lifted that off, cut that off, and then 2 pumps running, one in the front, one in back. I mean, we went from about 1.5 feet high to nothing in about 4 hours. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm sorry it happened, everybody, but
absolutely. No, you're right. And again, there are things people can do to protect their basements and protect their homes, and they should. And one of the programs that are out there, which basically makes it little cost or no cost, depending on the contractor, is this check valve program through the sanitary district, and that's one thing I'm going to definitely take advantage of.
Yeah, I can imagine you wouldn't, because I can't even imagine the amount of stuff that's going to be coming out on the curbs in the next couple of days, man. It's a disaster.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of really, really hurt backs. I mean, and the sad thing is that you've got people, when I look online and I see some of the older people that are having these problems, and they don't have the resources or the physical ability to go and clean up the mess that occurred. So, hey, thanks so much for calling.
Hey, well, listen, I gotta go. I gotta get running. I gotta go play pickleball. But on my way back up, I'm gonna stop by, take a little dip. Okay.
And by the way, sure, yeah. As long as you're clean, I don't want you to. The pool. I'll have to turn the chlorinator up, because if you've been in that sewer water, I don't want contamination. By the way, you're on with me next Friday. I want to point that out. So you're gonna be on with me next Friday. All right.
Bingo, bango, brother. I'll be there.
All right. Let's take another caller, and we'll go to a break. Want to take a break now? All right. We'll take a break. Callers, hold on. We'll be right back. It's the Morning Call with Tom Dabertin at 6:57 in the region, and we're going to be right back after these commercial announcements.
Drag your moment away through the grass where time has but will not stay. Through the pain, the whispers call, a quiet age that scares it all, humming slow like a ghostly thread. Memories linger, never quite dead. Barely there, they weave inside a song of echoes through the Rain whispers secrets to the trees, a lullaby of sorrow the night believes. Clouds hold the weight of tears unshed, blanket warm things where dreams are fed. Wrap me in the storm where the world feels still. Time slows its march, bends to the will. Unspoken warmth in the thunder's refrain. Cradle me safe in this warm blanket of rain. Shadows sway slow, cast by a dim glow. Each drop on the glass tells a tale of woe. Winds murmur truths the silence won't tell. In the arms of the
All right, folks, we're back. It's 7 a.m. in the Calumet region. You're listening to WJOB, 1230 a.m., 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. It's the morning call with Tom Dabertin. Of course, you can listen to us also on the TuneIn app and now YouTube Live. So lots of options for you to listen to us this morning. And Jed TV, you can watch us. And good morning, everyone. So we've got lots of callers, and we're going to do just quick traffic and weather and then get right to those callers. As far as traffic, no big surprise. The expressways in Illinois are starting to fill up. Northwest Indiana, 8094, I-65, the toll road, Client Avenue all look good. But when you get across the line into Illinois, back up all the way down now to 131st on the Bishop Ford. The Dan Ryan is its usual backup starting right around, say, 47th. The Kennedy, the Stevenson, the Eisenhower all look bad. Best bet is take 294 around the city. With that, let's go to weather, and then we'll go to phone calls.
All right. So for the weather today, it is going to be pretty well for the rest of the week after all of these massive flash floods and stuff. On Wednesday, we're going to have a high of 77, partially cloudy. Thursday will be much of the same. With the same high temperature, but a little more humidity and less clouds. And then for the weekend, we're going to have a great final week of summer with a high of 83, 82, and 75 likewise to finish out the week, and just some partial clouds. And that's your weather for the week.
All right, there you go. And in case you didn't know, we are coming up on the Black Moon. The Black Moon, which basically is this obscure term that the Old Farmer's Almanac came up with for a second new moon in a month. So we're having a black moon this month, whatever that means. But you can't see it anyway because if it's a new moon, you can't see it. So with that, let's go to callers.
The sky's also black outside. So.
That's right. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Tom. Going back to this thing about the NIPSCO rates, I've been talking about this ad nauseum for about 30 years now. I was reading about this in the 90s. Agenda 21, it's being promoted by some of the biggest investment banks, corporate banks, oligarchs from Europe all the way back to North America. NAFTA, the ICLEI, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. Obama was back when he was in office in Africa telling Africans they could not have air conditioning. It's bad for the earth. The new climate deal. All this stuff is actually austerity. It's called the post-industrial age. You're writing about it in publications from the UN all the way down to World Wildlife Magazine and National Geographic back in the 90s. The target is not to try to bring clean energy. The target is the middle-class lifestyle. They don't want you having a single-family home. They don't want you driving a car. They want you. The model, I think, is more or less communist China, the way people live there in the tiny apartments. But energy is going to be super costly to force austerity on people.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you on this. Your analogy is correct. They're trying to force us to have kind of a socialistic lifestyle where you're going to live in a small apartment. They're going to dole out how much air or how much heat you can have. You're not going to own your own car. It's all going to be basically community cars, kind of like a socialized version of Uber and Lyft. I agree with you. And by the way, the dumbest thing that I've heard come out of these people's minds is the study from yesterday that came out that said dogs are the third worst cause of climate change in the world. Dogs. Owning a dog, because dogs like to eat food and they also create gas, and those greenhouse gases hurt the environment. So now we're not going to adopt dogs. I think that's the dumbest thing I've heard yet.
You know, and it's not just dogs, it's cattle. There's a war against beef because supposedly flatulence by cows. What happened in this country before it was settled when there was millions and millions of buffalo running around? What, they didn't produce flatulence?
I guess not.
It's ridiculous on its face.
They produced clean gas. It was clean gas.
Yeah.
What a bunch of baloney. I mean, really.
Tom, it's a total lie. And as long as our stupid politicians don't address this, half of them are on board in the Democratic Party. They're all on board with this stuff. But, of course, they're not going to tell the idiots that vote for them about this that they're planning on changing their lifestyle. You know, if you look at what happened in Germany a couple of winters ago, they almost froze to death because they shut all their nuclear plants down, their coal-fired plants, and were getting by on windmills and solar.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. And by the way, the when you talk about stupidity, guess where that study about the dogs came from? Guess which state?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Minnesota.
Well,
Minnesota. So Jazz Hands Walls state. You know, the guy that they painted as just an average middle class American. Middle class dad. Remember when he was running for vice president? What a piece of work that guy is. What a complete buffoon. And so, yeah, we're going to eliminate power sources. So let's eliminate coal power. Let's eliminate nuclear power. And we'll just power everything by wind and by solar. And basically, like you said at the beginning of this call, they'll be able to control your lives because they'll only be able to dole out so much. You know what? It's going to be 90 today. You can have your temperature at 85, but we're going to control your thermostat, not you.
Yeah, Tom, how many senior citizens do you think are going to die because they get a $400 NIPSCO bill? They're going to be afraid to turn their air conditioning on.
But
do they really care about people like they say? No.
But you know, those seniors are taking up a lot of oxygen, and they're producing.
That's right.
You know, they're producing greenhouse gases. Oh boy.
You know, I think it was Rahm Emanuel's brother said one time. Oh no, it was Bill Gates. I think said. You know, you're not supposed to talk about this, but these seniors, when they get old and they cost the medical establishment buku dollars to stay alive for another 6 months, wouldn't it be nice to actually just, you know, let them pass away and use that money to hire teachers?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe they should. Maybe it's time to have like a Soylent Green marathon. You know how at Christmas time they show the movie Christmas Vacation, and they show A Christmas Story on television. Maybe we should be like some television network should run Soylent Green constantly, because that's what we're headed toward.
Yeah,
it's
well,
unreal.
The scene in that movie where Chevy Chase, throws on all the Christmas lights and shuts down a power plant. he'd be hauled out to jail for doing something like that now.
Yeah, the best one is his brother-in-law though when he's pumping out the RV. That's the best scene of all. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Great call. All right, 845-1100. I do want to mention, I picked on these buffoons with this argument about climate change being caused by owning dogs, and I want to bring up something that has been out there for a few weeks, and that is there is a fundraiser that's coming up in Whiting, and I just had it, and bear with me for 1 minute, folks. My phone decided to go to sleep, and then I lost the posting, so just give me a second. There's a fundraiser coming up for the Whiting Animal Shelter, and why is this important? Well, one, the Whiting Animal Shelter takes in animals from not just Whiting, it takes in plenty from Robertsdale as well. And this is being held on September 4th at Emerald Green. Emerald Green is the restaurant over at Lost Marsh, so it's at 129th Street up in the Robertsdale section. But it's called Pause for the Cause, a fundraiser for the Whiting Animal Shelter from 6 to 9 p.m. on September 4th. It will include food, music, and cash bar. The tickets are $50. They're available from a number of sources, including the Whiting Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce, Whiting City Hall. You can buy them over at Center Lounge. This is for a great cause. It's for the care, the care and treatment of dogs and cats, stray dogs and cats that are found in the community. So be generous, support this. I am a big believer in supporting animal shelters, and this is one locally, so please support it. An update, we have started to look for a new dog after the passing of Duke. Luna is certainly looking forward to having another companion, so we're working on that, and I will tell you that I'll be adopting from a shelter. I won't be buying from a puppy mill or from a private breeder. I'll be adopting a dog that's already out there in a shelter. So again, if you want to help out and you want to prove the idiots that came up with the argument that owning a dog is bad for the environment, if you want to simply spite those people, come out on September 4th from 6 to 9 p.m. to Emerald Green. It's $50 a person. The funds all go to support the animal shelter, the Whiting Animal Shelter, and again, that's Emerald Green at Lost Marsh, so it should be a nice time. So again, Walt made a great point this morning about we spend money needlessly on infrastructure, and then we go and we say when a tragedy like the flood occurs, well, the system was running at capacity, but is the capacity such that it meets the needs of the community? And that's another good question this morning. I mean, you can say, no offense, Mayor McDermott, post well, the plant or the Robertsdale lift station, which is manned, was fully manned during the flood. Great. And I know those people that work there, and they're very capable, knowledgeable people. But that person that's running that pumping station, or the people that are manning the systems over at the wastewater treatment plant, can only work with what they have. Nobody has said that the system is designed for capacity or not. Seems to me like there have been floods in Hammond for a long time. There have been floods in different communities. Do we have enough capacity? Do we have enough storage capacity? These are all questions that need to be answered. So if you have any answers, you have any opinions, 845-1100, the lines are now open. We've been pretty busy this morning, but I think we just picked up a caller, so we'll go to a caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom. How are you, sir?
Fine. How are you?
Doing well. It's ironic, and I don't mean this to be funny, but the last time I talked to you, I specifically mentioned to you the time in the city of Hammond where if you spit on a sidewalk in substantially number of communities within Hammond would flood, and then you had this terrible flood in primarily East Chicago and the northern section of Hammond. It's just ironic as all get out.
I do remember your comment, and you're right about it. I mean, look, they say, well, it's running at capacity. Okay, but is the capacity what we need?
Right. Exactly.
No one's answering that. And no offense, the mayor couldn't be here this morning. He showed up 3 times to talk about the convention center, but he wasn't here this morning.
Right. And I listen to radio and I absorb a lot, and I have a good memory. And I know people bash Mad Mac, but I'm going to tell you, every single word he said this morning was 100% true. I know a lot of people may not like the style. They don't like the bashness. They don't like that. But when he said it, for instance, not to interchange the subjects, but when he spoke of the Affordable Care Act, everything he said was true. We were told it's all settled, everything's done. Look at these emergency rooms. The people who could just normally go to a quick care center, they will no longer go to the emergency room. Then you talk to people that I know personally within family members. Are the emergency rooms any less full? No. He mentioned the rates, and I'll get off of this in a second. I was listening to a program just over the last week. Gentleman who had a background in insurance said the rates, private insurance, up 200 and some % increase since the Affordable Care Act.
All right, can I just jump in, though? Can I just jump in? And one of my favorite quotes is, we've met the enemy, and the enemy is us.
Right.
And so the Affordable Care Act, Mad Mac is right. It was a disaster. It didn't solve all the problems that they claimed it was going to solve. But I will say this. One part of the Affordable Care Act that made sense was the argument that you could get an annual physical at no cost if you had insurance.
Yes.
The number of people who take advantage of that is no greater than it was before the Affordable Care Act. And I don't understand why people don't take advantage of it. Just like I've been harping this morning that if you're in Hammond, you can get a check valve they'll pay up to $2,000 for the installation of that check valve. If you're in East Chicago, they'll pay $1,750.
Right.
Why don't people take advantage of it? I didn't realize the program was available currently, but when I found out yesterday there was, the first thing I did was get on my phone and call to find a contractor to put it in, because I'm going to take advantage of it. And I do take advantage of that annual physical. So why people don't take advantage of those things is beyond me, because they're just plain stupid for not doing so.
But it's even worse than that, Tom. You mentioned, and I agree with you, the annual physical free. There are some instances where companies will have health care professionals visit your industry for free. They will offer the opportunity for their employees who have Cadillac insurance plans to have a complete blood count done for free.
And they won't do it.
Thank you.
And they won't do it because I've been involved with several companies that have offered that, several employers, and the employees won't do it. And you know what they tell me? Oh, well, I'm afraid that somebody's going to find out about my own personal health information from the blood test. And my point is that they take the blood at work, but they don't give the results to the employer. No. They only give it to you.
Right.
And people are like, well, I don't want the doctor to know what's wrong with me. It's like, you don't want the doctor to know what's wrong with you. How dumb are you?
Right. But the thing is, Tom, getting back to my original point, people will say, well, people bring up complaints, but they have no solution. Yes, we did. We've had solution. Walt mentioned the train. From the day one, there were some of us speaking about the possibility of infrastructure improvement, the stuff that doesn't get elected officials in the paper. Let's face it, the photo op, the shiny new object, let me cut the ribbon, that's wonderful. Because it's not really sexy to replace your check valve. Let's be honest.
The mayor's not going to show up and hold a ceremony cutting the ribbon on my new check valve. You're absolutely right.
But what's frustrating then, because Walt brings up the subject repeatedly to certain hosts and certain people on the air, should we spend it on infrastructure improvements or the train? Well, I don't know much about that. What don't you know much about? Should we spend it on something that counts or the train? So when people play dumb to me, I don't participate in the conversation. But because I think people will say Chuck Pullins. Chuck Pullins, he's got tinfoil around his head. Every single subject he brings up, I practically agree with. So if you're saying that's tinfoil, it's tinfoil to say the Affordable Care Act was a bust. Granted, there are good points of it. I agree. Granted, the train for certain sections and certain communities, it was okay, good. I got it. But if you cannot deny we have older sections of our communities that could greatly use infrastructure improvements that are not sexy. That's all we point out repeatedly on these airwaves. And you're poo-pooed. You mentioned NIPSCO. Same thing. I listen to people over the years, Tom, on these airways and others, complain about NIPSCO. NIPSCO, remember Charlie Brown? Remember NIPSCO Charlie? People, a city of Gary, despised him because he had a contract with NIPSCO. Now, rate increase, every single time there was a potential rate increase from NIPSCO, you had certain people, primarily in the city of Gary, saying why it's wrong. I find it ironic that since now they have a mayor who formerly worked at NIPSCO and one of his CFO, formerly of NIPSCO, nobody complains. See, what it is, Tom, we call it out. You mentioned Mayor Tom, and I told you tons of times I think he's doing an excellent job. But you had the guts to say on this issue, and questions have to be answered. You have to keep.
Well, again, there have to be some answers to some questions. And
right.
And you know what? I get it. There are people who look. There were people yesterday on social media who were posting things, total nonsense. Okay, first of all, who cares that the mayor's basement is dry? He lives in South Hammond. I live in North Hammond. So what? He didn't get the same amount of rain. I don't care if his basement's wet or dry. It doesn't matter to me. But so some of those complaints are just absolutely insane.
It's ridiculous. I got you.
But I would like some answers to: did that force main, the force main that went out Sunday morning, did that have any impact on the fact that the Robertsdale station yesterday at 7 p.m. was pumping at overcapacity and people were still getting backup in their basements? Now, that's a legitimate question. Okay,
right.
We need the answer. And if the force main was fixed, what is the solution in the future to make sure that we don't have this problem again? Those are the kinds of things that we need answers to. And you're right; they're not sexy answers. They're not. Nobody's going to go out and hold a ribbon cutting to open up a force main or a fixed force main.
Right. And it has nothing to do with party, because the Republicans would do the same thing. It's irrelevant who I like and dislike. That's another thing. We get up on this. What elected official I like. So now everything you do is supposed to be correct. What really scares me, and I'll get off after this, when you said you removed the standpipe a day later and you still had water coming.
Yeah.
That's a severe problem. I'm telling you. I've been in homes that were built in the 40s and 50s, done the same thing you're talking about, had to deal with them as far as rentals are concerned. Never, ever, ever have I had to do that where a day later remove the standpipe and you see pressure from water at that level.
That's a problem. That is a problem, and that's the kind of answers that we need. Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for calling.
Thank you very much.
845-1100. We've got more callers. We'll take those callers right now. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, it's Matt Mack. I didn't mean to call back, but I just had. I just want to thank my Uncle Mike for that last call, for all those compliments. Mike, if you're listening, I'll drop off that turkey that Mayor Eddie Haskell gave me last Thanksgiving. I'll drop it off at your place later today, man. I appreciate it, Uncle Mike. Thanks, brother.
All right, there you go. All right, 845-1100. We have another caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have like 20 subjects that really touch me in the heart that you've talked about this morning. But one I really want to emphasize on is the animals, the dogs that are running around Lake County, and nothing can be done about them. I've picked up over 30. There's one I found this morning, but I could not get in the car to find, if he had a tag. He took off the other way. And that's right off Cleveland, and I was so afraid he was going to get hit. But I have 2 strays here. But there's no law, okay? I don't understand this. If a dog comes in my yard and wants to attack my puppies, which are strays, I have to shoot that dog. There's no room in the shelters. The police have told me I have to shoot the dog. There's no
the shelters are overflowing, and here's why. Because during COVID, a bunch of do-gooders had the idea that they were going to work from home and stay at home, and they were going to adopt fur babies, which was wonderful. And then they had the audacity to give up those dogs and those cats when they got called back to work. That's not how you do it. You called it a fur baby. Well, you don't give up your babies. You raise your children, and you don't give up. You don't turn them back and leave them out on the streets to fend for themselves. And that's what's going on these days.
Well, that's a big passion, just like you have. I have that, but it's like there can be something. If we can have a Michael Jackson tribute and all this other stuff going on, and our kids are precious to us. All the kids. That's to my heart. But these animals are close to my heart, okay?
Sure.
I have taken over 30 in, and this morning I'm trying to get the one out of the street so he doesn't get hit on Cleveland. But what do you do with them once you get them and you call the animal shelter or you call the police because there's one in your backyard going to attack someone? And they say, yes, ma'am, the only thing that we can do is for you to shoot it. Like, I could actually do that.
Well, you're in Gary. You're in Gary, right?
I'm in Calumet Township. Everything goes here, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Okay,
look, I just want to emphasize though, nobody should go out and shoot a dog. Nobody should shoot a cat.
But when it's going to attack, because
I understand your predicament. Yes, I understand your predicament. But
that's great. I could never do that.
What drives me crazy are these people that go out and people are looking for a pet. They're looking for companionship. There are countless dogs and cats that are available from shelters. You want a great companion? Get a dog. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've had dogs all my life. I love dogs.
Me too, yes.
And these people who, again, what drives me nuts are these people who, because they went back to work, they don't have the time for it. They're just leaving the dogs out on the street. They open the door, let the dog out in the middle of traffic, or tie them up in an empty lot. How dare you? I'd like to tie you up. I'm a big guy.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of people that I could tie up if I wanted to. That's crazy.
You're getting worked up, but let me tell you, this was before COVID that I would find.
But it's gotten worse since COVID, ma'am. It's gotten worse since COVID.
Right, but I'm saying, like today, there's dogs out here everywhere, and I've had one policeman last year, come up to me. I stopped him on the street, and he says, ma'am, we don't have room for them, but he says, I'm going to try. He stood there with me for a half hour and found a place for that dog. It's so much compassion. I've had officers say, man, our answer is to send them to Rainbow Heaven. So, I mean, I'm that person not trying to get the dog out of harm's way. But, have you ever been to Gary Animal Shelter?
I actually have, yes.
Okay. Why is it that when my daughter drops blankets off, they need food, my daughter's always, doing that. She carries when she goes down there because it's so scary, and you know what I'm saying, and there's no one there. Can anything be changed to make people want to go down there and drop stuff off? I mean, these are little changes. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but these animals, there needs to be a law that there's got to be a way. If you want a dog, you have here in Lake County or in Calumet Township, anything goes. You don't have to have license for your dog or anything, so you can let it out. It can bark all night. Okay, it can come down my street 24 times a day.
What about just human decency and maintaining and caring for something that is God's creation, and especially for a dog or a cat that shows loving support to its owner? What about that? I mean, why we don't need to have laws. We don't need to have laws to tell people to be caring and loving.
Well, no.
Isn't that part of the human race?
Look at today. I live on a street where people don't even take care of their children, and they're still popping them out, and they're still in their belly. Well, they don't take care of they're going to take care of their dogs.
Look,
you know what I'm saying? I'm living in
it's a horrible commentary on where we are as a society when you've got people, you're right, they can't care for a child, they can't care for an animal, they can't care for themselves.
They have a phone.
But they have a phone. They have a phone, and they can run up to Michigan and go buy some marijuana gummies. It's just crazy, just crazy. Hey, thank you so much for the call.
Oh, okay, but let me say one thing about Mad Max. Now he has all this power. Okay, he calls in every morning. Is that correct?
Well, Mad Max doesn't have any power. Mad Max is got an opinion though.
Right, but he's part of. But he has all this power and all this say. So I'm thinking maybe he could come up with something or run for office and make these people, fear.
Well, Mad Mac has
and
too
take
many
care of their
opinions to
animals.
ever run for office. But I will say this: Mad Mac's a good guy.
I
If
know.
you listen again, he's out there. He's out there helping people that are in need right now. So
Yeah,
I'll give him
maybe he
credit,
can
even
help
though.
the animals.
Well,
When he comes on, maybe he can get a group going because he has all this power and people listening. So maybe he can drive a truck and go pick up these dogs and start something to where people are afraid of him.
well,
because he's so
I'll
powerful
tell you
when
what.
he
You
comes
can
on.
ask him. You can ask him next Friday. Thanks so much for the call. Thank you.
Okay.
845-1100. We want to take a quick break. Why don't we do that? It's 7:28 in the region. It is Wednesday morning. It's the morning call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, the YouTube Live app, Jed TV, and TuneIn. Thank you.
Carried by the rain to somewhere. Street light flickers through a veiled mist. Echoes linger like a ghostly trick. Words unsaid drift through the rain and break. Each drop holds a fleeting kiss. Humming low where the shadows meet. A song of longing, bittersweet. Letters lost to the silent air, carried by the rain to somewhere. The world is softer in this quiet sound, where silence speaks and dreams are found. A melody lives where the heart strings ache, fragile as the ripples the raindrops make. Humming low as the night takes flight, fading into the softest light. Lost letters find their way once more to the heart that waits beyond the door. Rain whispers secrets to the window pane, a lullaby song, a tender refrain.
All right. And again, people are asking, where's this music coming from? Joe, what was the name of that? Can you put your headphones on? What was the name of that music this morning? I mean, it's elevator music, but it's called something from the 1950s.
Yeah, for those that are interested in listening to this kind of music, it's 1950s vintage summer with oldies music playing in another room.
Playing in another room. There you go. So it's kind of muffled sounding music, but again, because we're on YouTube Live and there are copyright concerns, we can't play requests anymore. I know the one gentleman who used to call in and he'd ask me to play the closing music to Gunsmoke. Unfortunately, we can't do that anymore because of the copyright issue. So sorry about that. If he'd like to call in and talk about anything else, he's kind of a fun guy. likes to talk about old television shows and radio shows. Kind of knows his stuff. So love to have him call in, but we can't do any requests anymore. So
I do want to give a little editor's note to the callers calling in.
Yes.
If you guys are on the phone with us, please do everyone a favor and turn down your microphone or turn down your car radio or whatever you may be listening on. Sometimes we get feedback on those calls, and it makes it really difficult for us to hear Tom or anybody else that's on the phone. And I'm sure it's probably a little difficult for you to keep concentration on your thoughts when you're hearing the feedback.
Good point. And, because people listen so many different ways these days, you're in the car and you're listening through your phone, however. And so the volume settings are even different for your phone sometime. Be cognizant of that. 845-1100 is the number to call. We've been talking about infrastructure. We've been talking about the flood that occurred, if you will, up in Robertsdale and Whiting in East Chicago the last few days. That's been certainly a major topic. Got into talking a little bit about some of the false promises that some of these programs make, like Obamacare, for example. And Obamacare I know quite well. I mean, I testified in a very well-known case about the Affordable Care Act, and there's still some people in the region who dislike me because I testified as a expert witness on the Affordable Care Act, and unfortunately couldn't divorce the fact that I was doing it as an expert witness and not giving my own opinion. I was giving the opinion that was in the law. So, but had some interesting discussions. I want to throw this topic out though this morning. There is a clear and definite slant against President Trump when it comes to his initiative on Ukraine. Now, there are a number of people who took to social media in the last year or so and put the Ukrainian flag behind their photos and said, I stand with Ukraine, and it sounds great. And what I find interesting is people say, I stand with Ukraine, and then you ask them, well, what are you standing for? And they say, well, I'm standing with Ukraine in their fight against Russia. Okay, but do you understand what's actually going on now? No. Trump's trying to force Ukraine to settle this war. Well, somebody's got to force the settlement of that war. And it's sad that over the weekend, the talk show pundits largely were almost wishing that Trump will fail in his efforts. And it was interesting that once again on Monday you had all these heads of state who came to the White House who said, look, we want this war to be over. The Ukrainians want the war to be over. We're beginning to learn that Putin now wants the war to be over. And people say, but Putin's a tyrant, Tom. Putin doesn't want that war to be over. Well, he does, because it's wrecking his economy and he's losing so many people, so many soldiers in that conflict. So it does make sense that everybody wants it over. And I'm just astounded by these individuals who hate Donald Trump so much that they actually will go on the airwaves and hope and state that they want him to fail. I don't care who it is. I don't care who he is, whether you like him or not. You just hope and pray that he can settle a war that's killing 20,000 individuals per month. I mean, this is a meat grinder. This is like something we haven't seen since, in some respects, since World War I. And the reason why I say World War I and not World War II, World War II was far more costly in lives. But World War I was a meat grinder where people just stood on the same lines and got shot and killed day after day after day. And that's what's going on in certain parts of Ukraine, especially in the northern border that is shared with Russia, where there's been some incursions by the Ukrainians into Russian territory. And then, of course, the Donbass region, which is on the eastern side, which is kind of a older, mineral-rich kind of... some people have described it as a rust belt. Other people have called it an armpit. But it's a kind of dirty, gritty area of Ukraine. And I'm just amazed that people would actually stand up and say, I don't want Donald Trump to be successful in bringing about peace to Ukraine. I mean, like him or not, he's done really well in bringing about peace to 6 different warring entities in the world, and he's trying to do a 7th, and I think you have to support him whether you like the guy or not. 845-1100 is the number to call, and we've got a caller, so we'll take that call. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, this goes back when Obamacare was first enacted, and it impacted on the delivery system. And my general practitioner, who was a smart young Indian lady, I'd been with her long enough, and out of the blue, she was said to me, "What do you think about Obamacare?" I said, "I think it's a bad idea," and she said, "It's a terrible idea. I mean, it's the damage it's doing to medical delivery." And then she said, "Why would anybody do that, given the problems with it?" And I said, "Well, frankly, there's some of us who think that the advocates for this Obamacare, that their strategy is to have it fail and then say, we haven't gone far enough. We need government-controlled socialized medicine like they have in Europe," kind of thing.
That's an interesting angle. Look, I probably know the Affordable Care Act better than 99.9% of the people listening or in Northwest Indiana. Again, I've testified about it in court, and I have read the entire act. So right there, I probably puts me in a 0.1% faction. But there are some aspects of Obamacare that actually were beneficial. Things like, for example, the argument of getting an annual physical. A lot of people don't get annual physicals. The other part of it was the promotion of blood tests. If you have a 40-panel blood test, as I'm told by my physician, basically that blood test tells them an awful lot about what's going on in your body, including whether you may have cancer, whether you may be prone to certain cancers, certain bloodborne diseases. It can tell about heart health, and people don't take advantage of the opportunity to get an annual physical at no cost, which is quite bizarre to me, because I would think that you'd want to find out, before you have cancer, if you have precursor cells, if your cancer is in its infancy, wouldn't you want to find that out before?
Good idea.
Before you're at stage 3 and there's not a lot of hope for you.
Well, one of the things I remember out of Obama's mouth was that his program you won't lose your doctor. Well, people found out that they did lose their doctor.
They lost their doctors. Look, I remember when the debate occurred, and it was 2009, 2010. And so that means I was right about 49, 50 years old. And, when you get close to 50, you really start looking at your health. And so I looked at Obamacare and I said, well, there's some decent promise. But I saw right away where you would lose your doctor, and there would be too many controls. And some of the things that they had proposed in Obamacare that they eliminated, like the boards of review. Those review boards, basically, I think they were being called death boards. Well, it was true. Right. Okay, so you're going to have this review, and they're going to determine whether you're worthy to society to continue medical treatment.
Right.
I mean, that was just nonsense. That was Kevorkian stuff that was almost out of some science fiction movie that thankfully was stripped out of the final act. But again, there were a lot of problems. What Obamacare did, I remember that another thing that it did well was it required doctors to put notes in writing, and it really solidified the Universal Health Code, the UHCs. So now the doctor says, this is what's wrong with Tom, or this is what's wrong with Walt, and they use a code number, and that code basically is universal. I mean, those things were fine, but a lot of what Obamacare provided was nonsense, and it didn't reduce the cost of health care. It added to the cost of health care, and that's the biggest tragedy about Obamacare.
Well, it went before the Supreme Court, and what I read was that the Supreme Court was under tremendous pressure from the Democrats, saying that Obamacare was a unique achievement of the first black president of the United States, and you cannot take this away from him. And we've seen how far the Democrats are prepared to go. I mean, you had Mr. Schumer standing on the steps of the Supreme Court building threatening members of the Supreme Court over the abortion issue kind of thing. And there were demonstrations at the homes of some of the Supreme Court justices that the Democrats didn't like. All illegal. And, of course, Biden didn't raise a finger to prosecute the people who were doing something that was illegal.
Well, you know, that's an aspect, Walt, that hasn't been covered for some time. The threats that were made to the Supreme Court, whether you like the Supreme Court or not, okay, whether you agreed just hypothetically all the way back to Brown versus the Board of Education, one thing that's always been recognized in this country is that you don't always have to agree with the law, you have to comply with the law. And when they were making threats to kill Supreme Court justices and nothing was being done about it, that was a complete tragedy. And I think that was another step to kind of tear apart the fabric that we know as Americans. You know, we have some respect for certain entities, okay? The judicial system. We may not like the way a judge rules. We may not like an opinion by the Supreme Court, but we realize that that's why we have it. And under the Biden administration, you're right. They just said, well, those are peaceful protests, but the guy was threatening to kill the, I think it was Justice Kavanaugh, but that was a peaceful protest. Just like the Summer of Love was a peaceful protest in Chicago that we've talked about.
When you had national television news guys standing in front of a line of business building going up in flames and telling the listeners this is largely peaceful demonstration.
And look, here's what's crazy. So over the weekend there were 10 neo-Nazis that marched in downtown Indianapolis. I don't know if you caught this, but it was covered by several media sources. I saw Scott Miller, the chief of staff of Mayor McDermott, posted it over the weekend, and he posted it. And I think it's reprehensible. Okay, first of all, these idiot neo-Nazis look to me like if they were back in Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 40s, I don't think the Nazis would keep them around very long. But anyway, they marched through. They're carrying guns, they're carrying flags, and they march through downtown Indianapolis. This has been a problem in America for years. We recognize the freedom of expression. And so, they used to have the clown costumes in the 1970s. They'd march in Klan outfits. Remember that? We had the Klan march, I think it was in the 1980s in Gary or whatever. And we had 500 police officers for 8 overweight morons. And it's important to draw attention to these people, and so I'm not faulting Scott by posting it, but my point is that we spend a huge amount of time posting and vilifying these, and justifiably so, these idiots, but you've got people who are doing far more damage to the American culture and to American society than 10 idiots dressed up as in Halloween costumes marching through Indianapolis. It's the people who are not abiding by our laws, who basically are doing anything and everything to degrade society, and they get away with it. And we say, well, it's freedom of expression. They have their right to give their views. Okay, they have their right to give their views, but then what about these morons? I mean, I don't want to give them their rights, but I don't think every moron on the other side should have the right to do some of the things they do. I mean, it was considered to be just, well, they're just upset. That's why we had the riots in Chicago. That's why we had the Summer of Love. They were upset. Well, okay, but then how is that different than these 10 morons who didn't do any damage, by the way, who walked down the sidewalks of Indianapolis at, I think, it was like 7 or 8 in the morning on a Sunday carrying, these dopey flags. I mean, what, again, don't glorify those idiots, but don't overplay the importance of them doing it either, is my point, I guess. We spent too much time covering that. Oh, my gosh, America's falling apart because 10 morons dressed up in Halloween outfits and marched through Indianapolis. That's wrong, okay? And, again, I agree. They're complete idiots. I don't agree with anything that they say. And at the same time, though, don't sugarcoat people on the other side who decide to go and take a trash can, throw it through the window of a jeweler, and rob the jeweler because they're upset with what happened 200 years ago or something. I mean, that's crazy too. And we justify certain acts and we vilify other acts. And my point is, why can't we just be consistent? Let's just vilify all illegal acts, all things that are wrong, all things that threaten the fabric of society.
Well, from the point of view of the woke Democrats, making that kind of equation is racist, fascistic, in fact.
Well, here, how about
you're supposed to support the rioters who burn and loot and so forth and so on, because their cause is compassionate and desirable.
Well, here, I've brought this up before, and I actually do a training on this for clients, that if you want to be respected in society, don't use obscene language. Yet, all of a sudden, there are people that are on the airwaves, and they just get bleeped, but it's F Trump, right? Right and left,
yes.
F Trump, F Trump. To me, it's embarrassing that that's the best they can do, that they have to drop F-bombs because they don't like Trump. Why not say, I don't like Donald Trump because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever the reasons are, but don't just F Trump, all right? Here, one of the biggest morons in Lake County politics is Ted Bilski. Complete idiot. Was friends with him for years. He got mad at me earlier this year because I called him out on one of his posts on social media where he basically posted a picture and said F Trump. And I said, well, that's not what I want an elected official to represent. And he's upset about it. I haven't lost any sleep over it, by the way. But I mean, how juvenile, F Trump. Why not explain why you dislike Donald Trump? Give some explanation. Give some reasons. I have no problem with that. I also am a little perturbed by people who constantly are on social media posting things that either not were said, it's totally fictitious and inaccurate information, or there's no basis for it. A friend of mine, very nice woman, by the way, she posted something the other day, and I called her out on it, and she thanked me for pointing out that it was a made-up story. I mean, there's stories on the internet these days. People sit in their basements all day, and they create the most fictitious stories on earth, and it's just wrong. So, hey, thanks so much, Walt, for the call. Let's take another call, and we're going to go to another break. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. I just wanted to call and say, too, I know about Trump a little bit, and I have a couple members of
Hold on 1 second. I want to point out something. I just got this. The Gary Courthouse is closed today due to power issues. So if you're headed to the Gary Courthouse, the courthouse is closed due to a power issue, and it appears that it's affecting Gary City Hall as well. So we don't want people to make needless trips to Gary Courthouse. This is the county courthouse in downtown Gary. and also Gary City Hall. So that just came in, and I will say that that is a irrefutable source because it came from Judge Christina Cantar, who is a great judge and a great person, great individual, and she just texted me, so I want to get that out there, that the courthouse is closed, that it's without power. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm glad you interrupted me. That's more important, really. Because I was going to just say I have a couple members in my family, and no matter what Trump did, they wouldn't like it because they just don't like him, period. And I told them that's immature. It's very childish to feel that way, but what are you going to do? You can't change their minds. But I'd rather talk about the animals, the pets.
Sure.
I'm the one that called in, how long ago? I can't remember, when my cat Joe ran away.
Yes.
Yes. Trucker Mike remembers that, too.
Yes, and the cat came back, and the cat's still with you, right?
Yes. Oh, I watch him like a hawk.
Oh, that's wonderful. But that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you get to enjoy that cat, and that you, again, you have all the love, all the companionship that you have from that animal. How wonderful it is, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And he's a warehouse cat. He was founded by my girlfriend's son that worked in East Chicago at a warehouse, and this cat kept hanging around and hanging around. He had no home, no nothing, and I had lost my last cat. She passed away, and I said, I got a litter box, I got litter, I got food, I got dishes, bring him on. So that's why I took him in. I was prepared. But he's so affectionate, Tom, I can't tell you. He just loves to be hugged and petted.
You know,
he even likes me to kiss him on top of his head. And then he looks at me like, do it again. You know, I mean, he's just so loving.
And here's the thing. There are so many mean people, mean-spirited people who don't feel any love, that don't have anybody else in society right now. Go and adopt a dog or a cat, and maybe, maybe, we'll have 10 fewer morons marching dressed up as neo-Nazis in Indianapolis, or a few fewer people who abuse children or rob stores or anything else. Because you know what, when you feel that companionship and that love, your priorities in life shift, right?
Oh yes.
Instead of having to go to court in downtown Gary today, which again is closed due to a power outage, maybe, just maybe, your focus is going to be on doing something good, on that companionship. You know, I love to go home and see my dogs and get greeted by my dogs when I walk through the door. I've always loved that. I mean, it's this undeniable, unfiltered love and that an animal has for you. You know, and when your cat comes up to you and sits in your lap, watching the dumbest thing on television is more enjoyable because you've got that cat or that dog on your lap. So I think it's great, and I hope people change their views, because it's so horrible what's going on right now. There's so many dogs and cats that are just being left out on the street to fend for themselves, and if it's a domesticated animal, they're not going to fare very well, especially with cold weather coming in a few months. Exactly. And it's wonderful to hear that you adopted a cat that was a warehouse cat. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
because that cat has a whole new lease on life.
Oh yeah, and we both love each other very much. I know that. I said, well, Joe, the house might not be as neat and clean, but I said, you know what? There's a lot of love here, honey.
Absolutely.
And I'll love you unconditionally. But I wanted to tell you, too, and hi, Trucker Mike and everybody. Hope they're all doing well. It's been on WJOB. I believe the woman's name is Jessica, and she works for the Humane Society in Munster on 45th.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
And this Saturday, I believe it's August the 23rd, from 11 to 4. I don't work for them. I'm just repeating it for anybody, including you or anyone. They're having an adoption thing going on. I didn't know how to say it. And some of the fees are waived. It depends what type of pet you get, of course. But she said they have puppies, they have little doggies, they have bigger dogs, they have cats, and they have kittens. And like you were saying, they're overflowing. So anybody,
They
anybody
are.
that
They need people to adopt a pet. Okay, I lost my beloved Duke, and
Mhm.
I can't talk about him because I'll get emotional. Okay,
Oh, exactly.
but I still have Luna, and you know what? I'm going to have a second dog because I can afford to support two animals, and I'm going to have two dogs in my house.
I don't blame you.
And you know, if everybody that's out there, if they just open up their hearts and their minds and they take care of an extra pet, we wouldn't have the overflow problems that we have in these shelters. And so it's a great point to bring up. So that's this Saturday
Yes,
at
August
Indiana
the
Humane on
23rd.
45th.
Yeah, it's if I can't, I'm not good with directions here. If you're coming from this way and going west, it's right past the Hammond Times building.
Yes.
'Cause
No, I know it well. In fact, that's where Luna and Duke came from. So
Oh,
I
okay.
adopted them from 45th, and I know Jessica because she was the manager that I dealt with when I was there. So look, I agree with you. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to bring some love into your life, and maybe, just maybe, we'll be less likely to drop F-bombs about absolutely everything. Maybe we'll be less likely to be so mean and difficult and so inconsiderate. Again, you have your opinions. You said you've got family members that don't like Donald Trump. Well, look, not everybody has to like Donald Trump. There hasn't been a president of the United States ever in our history where they had 100% support. So, presidents know that when they run for office that they're not going to have everyone's support.
But the thing about my relatives is too, it's my cousin and her husband. Donald Trump could do something really good.
He says he could cure cancer, and they'd still not give him credit. And
Probably.
And my point
They
is,
wouldn't.
there's a lot of things he does wrong, and I'll
Sure.
call him out on that. Okay.
Right.
One
right.
is I think he's too verbose. I think he's too braggadocious sometimes. So I think he needs to knock that off. Just comes things that I don't like about him, but at the same time, he's he may do some good things too, and he's done some good things in settling some conflicts. And if he can settle the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, then more power to him. And I'm going to support him, and I'm not going to criticize him for it. So
Oh, I think he's trying.
I think
mean,
so too.
I had TV on, and they interrupted, as you probably know. If you didn't, you had to shut it off. Otherwise, no, I left it on.
No, he is doing some good things, but I have to apologize.
Trying.
We're right up against the break that we've got to take. So coming up
Okay.
next is the Munster Chamber of Commerce show. So thank you for calling. And with that, we're going to take a break, and the Munster Chamber of Commerce show is up next. Don't forget, next Wednesday, we have State Senator Dan Denulk and State Senator Lonnie Randolph from 7:30 to 9. They're going to be taking your calls. And I'll be on also Friday the 29th on WJOB. I'll be filling in on Friday. And Mad Mac's going to sit in. He's going to talk about movies because he's kind of a movie expert. And I think I'm going to have my son here as well. And my son will talk about just about anything and everything that you want to talk about. So with that, we're going to break for the Munster Chamber of Commerce show. Keep it tuned right here to WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM all day, all night.
Memories